Hi everybody, welcome to another installment of Conversations in Wire. I'm your host, James Browning. I'm a sales representative here at the SoftFlex company. We are a beading wire manufacturer, and we are based out of sunny Sonoma, California. We do have a gallery, so if you're ever in our area, we would love to see you stop by. Today we're going to be working on a wire project for wrapping cabochons. It is basically a simple weave. We're just going to show how to do the crisscross look. I've got a couple of examples that I can show you. So let's just go ahead and get started today. Okay, so let's go over what we're going to need for this project. First, we're going to need our cabochon. Now, cabochons are generally flat-backed, and they have a domed top. This is a bead because it's got a hole in it, but I didn't have any actual cabs, so I'm using this bead. You can cover the hole up with your weaving or with an extra bead. Just use your creativity. So if you find a bunch of these, I would snatch them up because they're really fun to wrap. So we need our stone, and then for this project, I'm going to use 20 gauge non-tarnish silver. This is SoftFlex craft wire. It's a copper core that's silver plated. It is dead soft wire, so it's the best for wrapping. For this project, we're going to use 20 for the general wrapping and then 28 gauge. You can go to 26. It's just a little bit thicker of a gauge. But for this project, I'm using 28 just because I like the smaller wraps. So that's the wire we're going to need. For tools, we need, of course, our wire cutters. I always have on hand either my round nose or some bent nose pliers. So those are good to have around for this project. And then, of course, my nylon jaw tools for straightening the wire. You're also going to want some either painter's tape or masking tape. This is a great tip to when you're wrapping cabs to figure out how much wire you're actually going to need to go around your stone. So today's project, we're going to try and achieve this crisscross look. This is also a bead. It's drilled through the center, but you can't tell because it's, all nice and wrapped up. So the point of this is we're going to wrap all of these wires together. We're going to give a back for the stone to sit on, and then we're going to do this weave and then put our wires connecting. You don't have to do it exactly the same every time. It's just a simple weave. So I'm going to try and do something different than the two that we've made. But here is another back. This is a touchstone that I purchased that I decided to wrap instead. So, and this is bare copper wire. I was thinking about maybe try patining these or putting them in liver of sulfur. So that is something fun you can do with those. So let's just put these aside. So the first thing we're going to do is measure our stone. So I'm just going to take some masking tape and I'm going to put it on my stone and roll it around. And hopefully it doesn't come off. Now this is not an exact science, but it does help with the waste. So if you are using like fine silver wire or gold filled wire or something that you paid a little bit extra for and you don't have a lot of waste, then this is a great way of figuring out how much wire you're going to need to go around. So we know that our wire needs to be at least this big to encircle our cab, but we also need to add enough wire to make our bail. I kind of shorted myself on this one, so my bail is really small. And on this one, I didn't really measure, so I have this really big area as part of my design. So, I mean, that's another way of going. You could just eyeball it and then play with the wire that you have. So, I'm going to take my 20 gauge wire and I'm going to cut. So we need this much at least, but I'm going to double it just because that gives me basically this much on either side to make my bail out of. So let's just snip off a piece and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And you can always do this so you're not wasting a bunch of wire at once, but teardrop shapes are really easy. If you take your wire and you just kind of cross over and you gently tug, you'll get an automatic teardrop shape. So see, what we want is we want this to be at least as big, if not just a tiny bit smaller, so it has something to rest on. Or when we're designing around for like an actual bezel, then we would want it to go around the outside. But see how much extra that I have to use to make my bail? So that's the important part. You figure out how much you need to go actually around your stone, and then you add however much you want to use to make your bezel. So you don't have to go twice, you could go a third, but you want to at least give yourself working room. It's always easy to cut off wire, but it's really hard to add it. So always err on the side of caution, I say. All right, so I'm just going to straighten out this wire so I have something nice for cutting. On this design, I need to cut 5 wires. 1 to hold on to the back, 1 to be the outside wrap for everything to hang on to, and then 3 to make the design on the front. This was the same way. There's 5 wires here. So let's cut 5 of our 20 gauge wire. And when you're cutting wire, making it a little bigger than your original piece is good, because then you can always cut it down to the original size. I'm really bad at making the same size of wire all the time when I cut, so just watch yourself, because you know it's easy to mess up when you're designing, so take your time. Okay, so we've got, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is our 5th. Okay. Okay, let's straighten out these wires real quick. Now, when working with wire, you'll see that our tools are smooth. That's so you don't mar the wire. There are textured tools that look exactly the same, but they have like a zigzag pattern or something, or a crisscross pattern on the inside of the tool to help grip. And you don't want those, because that will leave a mark or pattern on your wire, especially when you're holding on to it, when you're trying to straighten. So that is a tip from me to you. Look for these smooth tools. You can also take a file if you have textured tools, and you can file off that texture. That's a little bit extra work, but you know, might save money. And straightening wire like this also gives it a little extra work hardening. So if your wire is really, really soft and you're afraid you're going to keep bending it or put weird wibbles in your wire, you can run it through your nylon jaw tools a couple of times, and that will help harden it up. Okay, now we've got our wires. Now for the fun part. I'm going to grab some 28 gauge. Now this, for this project, we don't need very much of this. So, see if I can find the end. There it goes. I would say cut yourself maybe at 2 feet. It'll probably have some extra. And on the 28 gauge, it's really 28, 26, 24. I think those are the ones that really have a problem unraveling off the spool. So keep a hold of those plastic things. And of course, all of our supplies are available on our website, www.softflexcompany.com. And if you're just starting out, we have actual beginner kits and everything. So, okay. Dropped my wire. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just take this and kind of give it just a little bend. Like kind of towards the front like this. And that's just gonna help us get our wire where we want it to go. Now, this little weave that I'm doing looks like this. Let's see if I can get it to focus. So you can actually create an entire bezel out of this weave, or you can do like a bracelet or whatever. The only thing that would be different is I would maybe take off these little side pieces that we start with and just do the weave up and down, up and down. So I'm going to start with 3 pieces. Now when you're doing this weaving, if you want to use like a clamp or something to help hold the wires together, or tape, you certainly could. I think it gets in the way, but that's totally up to you. Do what helps you. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take the little hook and I'm going to put it on the middle wire. And I'm going to try and hold on to it with my finger. And then I'm going to wrap around the wire. Three times. And I go over when I do these. When I do like just simple wraps, I kind of go pull it and then I go down because it kind of kinks the wire so it knows where it's supposed to go. So it's kind of like this, I'm making like a square, not just wrapping it. And I'm going to do this for 3 wraps. And then I'm just going to squish it down. And then I'm going to go, oops. Okay. So this is hard to see a little. You just gotta take your time and keep hold of your wire. So I'm going to go up to the top and back down. And I'm going to go in between the second and third wires. So I'm going to go back up to the top of the wire, back down, and between the second and third wires. And that's going to get me this little point on top. Okay? Now, what we want to do next is make sure that our wire, when we go back down, is on the outside. So don't bring it back up all the way through the center. We're going to go down to the third wire now. And we're going to grab that, and we're going to go between the first and second wire. So we're going to wrap these 2 wires together. And we're going to do that 2 times. So now we've got a wrap around the top 2 and now the bottom 2. And now I'm going to throw in another wire here. And what I like to do is kind of spread out my wires so that they're splayed, so it's easier for me to find my way. Alright, so with the wire on the back side, I'm going to go down to the bottom of that wire that I just added, and go up and go in between the second and third wire. So we're just wrapping those last two wires together, like that. See, so we're kind of developing this little stair pattern. Okay, and then adding our last wire in, and we're going to go straighten our wires out so they're not higgledy-piggledy everywhere. And I'm going to wrap around the last one, and then through the between the third and the fourth wire. Let me do that 2 times. So see, we have a nice little stair step pattern there. Okay. Now with the wire on the back, I'm going to go around the fourth wire, and the third wire. So we're basically going back up the stairs now. So you should go between the second and third wires for that top part. Okay? And then take a moment after each stitch and kind of squish your weave together to make it nice and neat. I'm gonna move stuff out of my way so it stops focusing on it. There we go. Okay. So then we're going to go up one step. We're going to go around the third wire and then go in between the first and second wire and wrap those two together. Okay. And then we're going to go around the second wire, wherever that is. There we go. And then we're going to grab that top wire. Maybe. The wires like to play. Sometimes it gets a little crazy when you're wrapping, so just take your time. I don't think wire wrapping lends itself to mass producing because you do really want to take your time to make sure that you are getting nice clean wraps and not skipping anything or tangling up your wires. There's a lot to this stuff. Alright, so we've got our V and we're just going to go down one step and just do that, mirror that one that we made over here. So we're going to go down to the second wire, in between the second and third, and we're just going to wrap. I'm just getting this out of the way for now. Can always bend it back. I'm just going to wrap around, we'll say 4 times because I think that's what I ended up. Just match whatever you have on the other side. There we go. Okay. Now, with this weave that we just did, and similar weaves where you're doing that kind of V shape, you can actually pull the wires out and that V shape will stay. So you can use that as a design component style choice. But also as a warning, you can also pull out your wires out of this weave. So be careful. I'm going to go ahead and clip off the wire. Just close down both sides. And then just take a moment to tuck in, make sure there's no pokey outy bits. This one didn't get cut quite as close, so there we go. All right, so now we have a little V, and that's going to be the base of our bezel. I'm going to turn the V upside down so that the smallest point is at the top, because that's where we're going to make our narrowest bend. So like that. So we've got an up and down, and then this is only attached right there. So, okay. All right, now I kind of want to shape this just a little. So if you have a mandrel, or you can use this to just kind of give it a gentle bend. That will help get your wires going where they need to be when you're making your project. Because from this point, you can get them to do their little cross thing to make your teardrop. Now the heavier gauges have a little bit of a snapback, so you can go and make a smaller shape than what your bead is, and then you can bend backwards. It's easier to do that than to try and keep fiddling from a larger point. I don't know if that makes sense, but okay, so that is our general shape. Now what I do is create the bail now to get that out of the way. So that's that line that we had with the extra, that's going to be our bail wire. So kind of separate that out. There we go. Okay. So this is the one that I want to make sure goes right around. Okay. Okay, so where it crosses, I'm going to try and hold on to the wire so they don't uncross too much. But I'm going to take my pliers, bent nose, chain nose, whatever you have, and I'm going to make a small bend right there. And I'm going to try and do that right at the other spot too. You don't really want to get crazy with these bends, because what we just want to do is create that shape of the stone and have those two wires meet, because that's where we're going to connect them and start our bail. Okay, that should be fine. Now, how big do I want my bail? Okay. So to make your bail, what we want to do is find a dowel or a mandrel or something that you use, and we're going to wrap this around to create our nice round shape. Don't worry about attaching them yet. We're just kind of getting measurements at this point. So what we can do now is we can snip this part off about right here. You can do this part before you bend it around the mandrel, but I always mess up when I do it when I do it too early, and I always make my bail too short. So while you have the extra wire, I would advise creating your bail and then snipping off the extra. So I'm just going to take my ends of the wires here and just kind of curl them around. This creates a little design element, and it also gets the snaggy part of your wire away. Okay. All right, so now we've got a basic bail design, and we're going to take our pliers and we're going to bend this a little, because what we want to do is we want to attach this bail together with some wire. I'm also going to bend this out a little. Okay. So what we've got is this now, and we want to wrap that together. So we're going to take our leftover 28 gauge, and I'm just going to wrap it around the wire a couple of times. Just give me some footing. Okay, and then I'm going to take these and put them together. And then attach them. So we've got that part together now. Now we can fiddle with this part to get this where we want it. I put my dowel back in. And then go around. Oops. Okay, I can take this out. Now if this is not the way that you want it, like for me, this is not the way that I want it. I want to take these and make them smaller. So I'm just going to snip off these little pieces right here. And then I'm going to curl these up real quick. This is harder than doing this at the beginning. So try and make sure that when you're designing that you get it right the first time. But, you know, it's whatever. Art is fluid. You just gotta work with your mistakes, tie it into your work, and make it so that you meant to do it, right? Okay, so these separate by themselves, but you can spread them apart now if you want. All right, so I'm just going to wrap around the outside of these little bows that I just made. And that is our tamale lady. So unfortunately, she got on my tape, so I apologize for that. So I've clipped that first part off, and then I am now going to finish this up. So I've got this, I'm going to wrap it one more time around the outside, and I'm just going to clip it off. Okay, so we've made our bail. And now let's go ahead and make the back part. So design choice here. How do you want the back of your stuff to look? I think I'm just going to go with a simple cross for now. I guess that's the easiest to do, and it's still fairly secure. Plus, because the way that we made our bail wire, that's kind of sticking it there too. So for this design, we didn't need to be too choosy. All right, so what I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to take these wires and I'm just going to decide where I want my cross to live. So maybe about there. I'm going to get it to stay there by creating my loop, by pulling it down a little, and then letting it relax. So I think that's good. And let's just carefully bend our wire on either side. Use your finger to support so you're not going to wreck the loop. So what we've done is we've created a starting point for our loops, or our, I don't know, I guess they're loops, something to hang on there. So I'm going to cut off about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to cut off to about 1/8 of an inch, I should say. I think I cut that one a little short, but that's okay, we'll work with it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my wire and my pliers and just try and round that wire around it. Like so. This one should be easier because it's longer. And then just kind of make sure that when you feel it, there's nothing poking out anywhere. So then we can lay our stone back in there and it is sitting in really nicely. Okay, so now we get to start working on the weaving part. So the first one is going to be the top. That's the one we want to weave with first. So untangle your wires here so that your top one sticks out on top. and create your first loop by kind of squishing those wires together. And then we're going to do the next one the same way. You want to make sure that in this design that your wires are crossing the exact same way. So if the right one's coming over across the left one, then keep doing that. Because it's not really weaving the wire together, but it's giving the appearance of it. Now you could go the extra mile and try and weave these wires together, but I think that creates some weird like bends and stuff where your wires are meeting. So I think that'd be the last part that you do. So this is the tough part. What we're going to do is try and get these two sit on top of the wires right. So there's going to be a little bit of fiddling where we seat our cabochon and try and bend the wires around them. And then the last wire here needs to be bigger than everybody else so that it sits nicely. This is a really fiddly project, guys, I'm sorry. But the end product is pretty. Okay. The other thing you can do, if it gets really fiddly and you're just losing your mind, you can take some tape and just tape that where it needs to live for now, so that you can concentrate on getting your wires to do what they need to do. Okay. So when you've kind of got your wires where you want them to be, as much as you can at this point, you can start to create your bend. And that will help get the wires to stop moving around as much. But remember, when you set these wires and you put that bend in, that bend is going to stay there. And this wire went the wrong place, I think. And then if you've taped your stone, now is a good time to take that tape off, because it will be difficult to take it apart after you curl the wires. Oh, that is some sticky tape. Okay. Okay. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the back wires. We're going to wrap them around this wire here. Now you can use, like on this one, I used the front wires to wrap around. On this one, I used the very back wire, or the back this wire because the design choice that I had made created the ability to do that. But on this one, we're going to use the bezel wire basically. Okay, so I'm going to snip off the excess. Remember, like I said, it's approximately 1/8 of an inch. This part is not the simplest at all. So you're going to see me struggle with it and you're going to struggle with it, but just keep at it. Once you make a few of these, this part will get easier. Another thing you can do is you can pre-curl once you've got these cut. Make sure you're not going to cut these wires. Okay. So now is the time to look at your design up front and see if there's anything that you want to change about it. Like if you don't like the way the wires are weaving, if you think that one wire should be going the other direction on something. I kind of like it. I think this is, well, actually, let's switch direction on these top two. See if that makes more sense. And yes, it does. Okay. Okay. So we're going to take our round nose and we're going to curl up the end here as much as we can because we're going to try and get that to go underneath. Like I said, we're going to struggle with this part just because it's the tough spot. And what we really want to do is try and keep these wraps to the back so that our bale wire is either on the side or on the back. See, it's totally not the easiest part. And as always, guys, if you are watching this and you like these videos, please feel free to leave me a like and subscribe to my channel. And then also, if you ever see me struggling with something and you have a better idea on how to do it, please leave a comment. I am always looking for better ways to do things. And then also, people who come along can read your comment, and if they're struggling with the same thing, it'll be helpful. Because artists like to help each other. That's just the way that our world is. These did not curl under at all because everything is so tight already. There we go. Be really extra careful when you're doing any adjustments with your pliers so that you don't scratch or nick your stone. See, that side did what I wanted it to do, so that's good. This side is fighting me a little, but I think I have it where I want it. And I'm just going to cut off the extra piece here. Maybe. Get to it. There we go. Okay. And now we make final adjustments. And there we have it. Now see if you have a hole or something that you are just really having an issue about, you can take like a bead or crystal. Actually, this looks nice. We'll take this. And I'm just going to wrap it around. And then just snip it off. There we are. So that is the basic crisscross pattern, and you can do all sorts of different things with it. You can put your crisscross down here, you can make like a diamond, and it all depends on what you want to do. I say play with it and show me what you got. If you have Facebook, we have a group on there called a Very Important Beater Group, and it's where we all can get together and show our work. So feel free to join in and show me what you've been making. I really appreciate that stuff. Okay, so that is our show today. Thanks for stopping by and watching. I hope you guys had a great time. I know I did. And have a great day. Thanks. Bye.